Okay, in this video we want to have a look how to evaluate data in Google Tables, because Google Tables is accessible for free for everyone. You just need to have a Google account. So if you have a Google account and you are logged in and open Chrome, then you find this button where you can open all the Google apps, and we want to have a look at Drive. Here you see basically all the files I already have. And here you can create new files. So basically you can, where is my file? Here. You can open your file here. Yeah. So here we have again the file of the students who are asked for the gender, for the means of transportation, and for the place where they study and their study satisfaction. What you could also do, you can, with Control A, Control C, you could also create a new file here, new Google Tables, and then copy and paste your table into the Google file. Okay, so again, we want to evaluate the hypothesis if the study satisfaction is different for different places. And what we do when we evaluate a hypothesis like that is that we basically compare the averages of study satisfaction for the different places. So to do that, we again need our pivot tables, and we also have pivot tables. I think we find it here under data. No, it's also at insert, and here we have pivot tables. So again, we need to open pivot tables. Before we do that, we need to click into our data set so that Google is able to recognize as a data set. So then insert pivot table, and again we create a new worksheet. Our pivot table will now be created in a new worksheet, and it looks a little bit like in Excel, but a little bit different. So here again is a place where we will create our table, and here's a place where we can work on our table. So here you see, here we have all our variables, and if you scroll down here a little bit, then here you also have rows, columns, values, and filter. So to compare the averages of study satisfaction for the different places, we need first to have the places in the rows. So we click on Add, and now we add place. You see, now we have again here all these places of the students in our survey. Then we need to put to the values the study satisfaction, the second variable. So study satisfaction. And you see here, same way as in Excel, now it calculates the sum of study satisfaction, but we don't want to have the sum, we want to have the mean or the average. So you can here directly click on such a menu and change from sum to average. And now you see here, we have the averages now. I don't know exactly how you could now cut the numbers to two places after the comma, how that works on Google, but maybe you find it out. What we can also do is we can insert now a chart. Here we have diagram. And so now you see, remember here we have all the places, and here we have the scale. From the scale all in all was from 0 to 10, but the averages are here basically between 4 and 6. So you see again highest study satisfaction a little bit more than 6 here in Prague, the lowest in Paris with 4.8, I think it was. Let's put the diagram a little bit aside so that we can see the correct values here. Okay, so again, I propose to you to make a brief pause and to go back into your data set and to evaluate hypotheses like, is the study satisfaction difference according to the means of transportation that is used? So are bicycle drivers less happy with their studies than car drivers, for example? And also evaluate if the study satisfaction is different for males and females. Yeah. So for both, it's the same thing. You would calculate the averages for the study satisfaction, and then you can compare these different groups. Okay, what we now also want to do is we want to create a cross table, which is also sometimes called contingency table. So you remember we have different types of data here. Here we have numerical data, and it's interval scaled. We call it interval scaled, and you can, what is typical for interval scaled data is that you can calculate averages. But what if you want to evaluate if on different places different means of transportation are used? Yeah, so maybe there's a relationship between the place and the means of transportation. Here, the places, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and so on, you could not calculate any averages. And here's a different means of transportation, also not. So we call this type of data, which is not bigger or smaller, where Madrid is not bigger or smaller than Paris and bike is not bigger or smaller than a car. So basically in a statistical meaning, we call it nominal scaled variables. And to evaluate the relationship between nominal scaled variables, we need to create a cross table. So again, we need to click somewhere in the table. We again need to insert a pivot table. And now we put the places again into the rows. Yeah, here we have the different places now. And into the columns now. Yeah, we didn't have anything in the columns when we compared the means. So in the columns now, we put the means of transportation. In this context, means does not mean the average. Yeah? It does just mean things that you use to come from one place to another. So don't be confused by that. And now you see again, we have our cross table where in the cells here, we should see how many Berlin students come with a bike to university, or here, how many students in London come with a car to the university. So, but therefore, we need to put something into the values, and we also put the means of transportation into the values. And now you can see here, 2 students from Berlin come with a bicycle, but 5 students from London, 4 from Madrid, and 1 from Paris. Now, if you want to compare if Berlin students prefer bicycle compared, let's say, to students in Paris, we cannot compare these numbers directly 2 to 1 because we have here very different numbers. We only have 6 students from Paris, but 13 students from Berlin. So to be able to compare these numbers, we need to have percentages. Yeah. And percentages in a way that all students from Berlin should be 100%, and then we want to see how many percent of the students from Berlin come with a bike, and also all students from Paris are 100%, and then we want to see how many percent is one student from Paris. So maybe even if you have less students here, maybe you have a higher percentage. So let's let's have a look where we can do that. I think it should be this menu here. Average, median, product, standard deviation. No, obviously not. Can we find it here? Ah, yeah, here it is. Percentage in the row we want to have. Yeah, as I said, all students from Berlin should be 100%. Now you can compare these numbers, and you see, indeed, only 15.38% of the Berlin students come with a bike, but 16.67% of the students from Paris come with a bike. So relatively more students in Paris come with a bike to university. And now you can also see in which place do people prefer which mean of transportation. So for example, in Prague you see Public transport seems to be very nice because 50% of the Prague students use public transport. If you look, for example, at the cars, so you see here the highest number you have in Prague. 33% of the students from Prague use cars. If you look at the bicycles, you see here in London, 83% of the students in London use bicycles. Yeah, or if you look at walking here, you see 50% in Paris walk to the university. Um, Obviously, this data is made up, so you cannot generalize the findings here. But you could imagine that if you want to examine which cities are more bike friendly or which are more car friendly or which cities have a great public transportation system, then you would like to have data like this. Obviously, we can also create a diagram, a chart now from this table. So we click on Insert, Diagram, and that's now how a diagram would look like. Yeah, you see, cross table has a lot of numbers, so it's not so easy to interpret. So we have one bar here, staple diagram, and the different colors. For example, orange is walking, green is public transport, yellow is other, red is car, and green is bike. So you see automatically here most bikers we have in Prague and most car drivers we have here in Paris and most bikers we have here in London. Bike is blue. Green is public transport. Most public transport we have in Prague. Okay, I hope that was helpful. But let's do one more thing. So we also want to have a look how to create a frequency table. So frequency table is basically a little bit simpler. There we only want to know how many students from Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and so on do we have. Before you continue now, you should again make a pause and maybe create a cross table and evaluate the relationship between gender and places. Maybe men and women prefer different places. And again, gender and also place is nominal scale, so you should create a cross table. Or gender and means of transportation, you should also evaluate. Yeah. So for these two hypotheses, males and females prefer different means of transportations, and males and females prefer different places. You should evaluate these two hypotheses with cross table. Okay, and after the pause, we want to have a look at frequency tables. So we want to see how many students do we have. Well, let's take the means of transportation. Do we have who drive a car or come with a bike to the university? So again, we have to click into our table. We insert a pivot table, create a new worksheet. And now when you want to have a frequency table of means of transportation, here you just want to have one variable. So we put one variable into the rows. Oh, click on add means of transportation. Now you have here all the different means of transportation. And now we want to see how often do we have these means of transportation in our data set. So we click on value and add the means of transportation. And now you see here we have 12 students who ride a bike, 6 students who ride a car, 7 students who use other means of transportation, 7 use public transport, and 5 are just walking. You could also show these values as percentages. In this case, it should be percentage of the whole. Yeah. And you could also create and insert a diagram for this frequency table, which would look like this one. Yeah. Here, most students use a bike, more than around about 30%, I would say. And then again, if you write a research report, you copy and paste a chart like this into your research report. Okay, I hope this video is helpful to understand first how to create cross tables. Or first, the first thing what we have done is We have compared the means. So if we have data where we can calculate the means, then we should compare the means, because here, for example, for every city, we just have one value, just the mean. If you cannot compare the means because you have nominal scale data, then you see here cross tables are a little bit more difficult to interpret, because here for every city you have a lot of different numbers. Yeah. So whenever you can compare the means, compare the means. Only if that is not possible because you have nominal scaled variables, then you need to create the cross tables. And the last thing what we have done is we have created a frequency table. A frequency table, there we have the same variable in the columns and in the rows. Yeah. In a cross table, and also when we compare the means, we have different variables. But in the frequency tables, we have the same variable. So that is the difference. Okay. Thank you for your attention.